What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Fraunfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 019, or episode 19 of the What's a Hero podcast. I'm your host, Ken Fraunfelter. All right, boys and girls, let's have your attention. You remember hearing that when you were in school? There would always be some kid pushing to see how far he could go before he was singled out for not giving the teacher his attention. You might be surprised to hear this. I was sometimes that kid. I guess it all depends on who else was in the class and if I was trying to impress them or whatever. But sometimes I was my teacher's favorite student, and sometimes I was absolutely not. I remember getting made fun of, scoffed at, scolded, sternly spoken at in a thick Irish brogue by a Catholic nun I had for a teacher one time. I was told I was stupid or grabbed by the arms and physically shaken by a teacher at one point, kicked out of the classroom, and made fun of by others, and made fun of others. Other times I was asked to lead the class, asked to help other students, lead the school play, cheered at or for, hated, liked, and forgotten about. And I bet the majority of those of us who have put our school time in the past can say similar things, not just of our schoolmates, but by our teachers too. We all grow up and hopefully are not the same person we were. If you are, you need to go talk to somebody. We should look back and see the situations we went through as children molded us into the person we are today. It may not have had a direct effect on building us up, but it may have made us realize the things we don't like or work to progress ourselves and become a better version of ourselves and avoid that negativity. There are those people in our lives we grew with or grew because of. Our friends, family members, teachers, mentors, coaches, counselors, and any other type of person we had in our life. Some positive influences, some not so much. And what may have been a positive influence for one person may have been a negative for another. We all look at things quite differently, but we all have growth because of the input others have had in our lives. There are those people we had in our lives we grew with or grew because of. Our friends or family members, teachers, mentors, coaches, counselors, and any other type of person we had in our life. Some positive influence and some not so much. And what may have been a positive influence for one person may have been a negative for another. We all look at things quite differently, but we all have growth because of the input others have had in our lives. There are people we might be glad are no longer in our lives. They should be a part of us. If we are a good person and honest with ourselves, they should be glad, or we should be glad, that they were in our lives in the first place. I have people in my life I am very glad are no longer part of my life. However, when they were in my life, I learned things about myself and maybe realized that I don't want to experience or learn what better road I need to follow. Just because they are negative does not mean I need to maintain the negativity. We grow and we learn and we make ourselves better for it. At least we should. Remember those in your life who helped mold you in return at some point, and thank them for doing so. I can recall a good number of my teachers through school. Even if I can't remember their names, I remember their faces and what they did for me. And I should have probably apologized for the idiocy to several of them. And to be honest, they could probably apologize to me too. But I won't be holding my breath on that. However, I can show my respect to teachers that I know now. They are not specifically my teacher, but they are teachers. I can still learn from them and everybody else for that matter. So, with that, I would like to introduce today's guest. She's a school teacher who always has a huge amount of understanding and enjoyment with kids in her classroom. I first met her while teaching a class myself, and she was one of my students. So I would like to welcome Vicki to the show. Welcome, Vicki.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for coming on today. Before we started today, Vicki she said she was kind of getting nervous and wondering why I invited her. Now, that's a good question. And if you listen to the podcast regularly, you understand that I've mentioned this before, that a lot of people will ask and they'll say, why, I don't know why you invited me on here because I'm not a hero. And I think that's a theme amongst heroes. So it was weird when you asked me and you said, why would you even invite me on here? And then you said you were even knocking on the door to come in, and you were like, oh, well, should I even do this? So I want to first lay it out that absolutely you should. If you serve your fellow man, fellow woman, fellow little kid, you're absolutely a hero, and anybody that thinks otherwise is wrong. Is that my opinion? I don't think it's just my opinion. I think it's something that we just don't maybe not understand, because you're not pulling people out of burning fires, and you're not pulling people out of these horrible things, but you're teaching them in the first place how to develop those skills to either be that person or not get themselves into that position in the first place. So yes, you're welcome. Another hero in my book. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
Because you had school today?
I did.
Yeah.
Second day with kids back in my classroom in a year. So it's been a year since I've had kids in my classroom.
And that's all because of coronavirus and all that stuff like that?
Yes.
And it's weird, huh?
It's very weird. It's almost like relearning how to teach, because I've been teaching, but I've been teaching off of a cart or online.
Yeah.
So it's different.
So how long have you been teaching? In the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, 21 years.
21-year veteran. We're going to go with veteran in this one. And because you do a job that I don't think a lot of self-proclaimed tough guys could do, and that's deal with kindergarten through fifth grade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's a huge change, because a lot of people say people are people, but kindergartners are sometimes not your regular people.
No. Well, and I came down from middle school.
Yeah.
So when I moved to elementary school from middle school, the kindergartners were an enigma, and they continue to be an enigma.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, are they more difficult than middle school? I mean, obviously, what is the difference? What is the difference in the difficulty?
Middle school is tough, but it's a different kind of tough. The kindergartners, when you've taught middle school, the kindergartners go off on tangents, right?
Right.
And if you don't realize that going in, and you say something, and then all of a sudden the whole class is popping off because you said, my dog barked while I was doing something, and then
I have a dog.
I have a dog. My dog barked too. My dog died. And it could go on for days if you're not careful.
Because every single one of them wants to get in there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and no filters, right?
Right. They don't understand some things because what's okay at home may not be okay for public consumption.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And not that it's bad. It's just
different.
Not proper.
Right.
We leave our pants on at school. Stuff like that.
Yeah, things like that you never thought you'd have to say at work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, no, I completely understand what you're saying, because there's sometimes that adults are children.
Absolutely.
And so when you deal with adults that are children. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go back. Let's go back even before middle school. Mm-hmm. Let's go back to when little Vicki was little Vicki.
Uh-huh.
And you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do. Did you always know you wanted to do this? You wanted to be a school teacher?
I did. I always knew I wanted to be a school teacher. with some short stints wanting to be, a detective because I read Nancy Drew all the time.
Oh,
but,
right.
But yeah, I don't think there was ever a question in my mind that a teacher was what I was going to be.
Yeah.
So
when they're talking about what do you want to do when you grow up, and you're like, was there a teacher specific to you that you looked at and said, I want to be like that teacher?
There were a couple of teachers that I had that were like that. I had one elementary teacher. It's funny that you said that you were one of the kids that maybe was in trouble a lot.
I don't know what you're talking. Was that? When did I say that?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I was never the person that had a desk in the corner by myself because I couldn't stop talking. It wasn't because I was trying to be a troublemaker. It was just because I was friendly, I guess.
Yeah.
In situations where I was comfortable,
Right.
Yeah, no,
that's
just blabbed.
That's exactly right. It wasn't because I wanted to ruin somebody's day.
Right.
I just liked playing, and sitting down and quietly to myself doing my work was not something I was overly good at.
Right.
When we go do things.
In the day when we were kids, people didn't recognize that some kids just don't learn sitting at their desk, right?
Learn differently. Everybody learns differently, and there's all the different ways.
Yeah.
So you were going through, you said you were reading Nancy Drew, so were you a reader?
Absolutely. I have always been a real avid reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nancy Drew and...
all the detective stuff.
Hardy Boys, things like that.
Hardy Boys, yeah. But also, Little Women.
Yeah.
I like series.
Oh, okay.
Because I get attached to characters.
Right.
I get attached to people.
Right, yeah.
So I like series because I can keep going with it.
That's cool. So did you do sports when you were in school? Were you a big sport?
Not a big sport person. I played soccer starting when I was pretty young.
Yeah. And
played it until I was a freshman in high school. I loved it, but I wasn't very good at it.
Right. So did you, more or less, did you play outside all the time, or was it you'd sit on the front porch and read a book, or was it kind of a mix of both?
Definitely a mix of both.
It was rarely ever a sit inside and do nothing kind of person, though, right?
No.
Right.
It was cold where I grew up.
Yeah.
So, when it was cold, I'd read. And when it was nice outside, you were outside. So.
Right. So you're going out, you're playing, and you play soccer until your freshman year in high school, and you realize that I'm going to get into different things than the organized sports, the extracurricular sports.
Yeah.
What did you do otherwise?
Well, all along I had been surprised doing music classes. So, real involved in band and singing. So when I was in high school, it was kind of a choice of soccer or staying in band, because trying to do marching band and soccer at the same time was a death sentence to try to do that and do well in school.
Right. What was your instrument?
I started out playing flute.
I was going to say, don't say the trombone. Or what's that one they wrap around you?
Oh, did you just say don't say the trombone?
What is that? What is that big one that?
That's the sousaphone.
That's what I'm
pretty
talking
small to play.
The trombone is a slide, right?
Yeah, and when I got tired of playing the flute because all the girls were playing the flute, I switched to the trombone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't mean trombone. I meant the sousaphone.
The sousaphone, yeah.
But what is the non-marching version of that? Is that the tuba?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I tried to play a tuba once in college, and it's very difficult for a smaller person.
It just takes a lot of air power.
It takes a lot of air, and I was too short for a full-size tuba, so I had to stack dictionaries up on the chair to be able to reach the mouthpiece.
Right.
So, and you play a note, and you think you're going to pass out.
Yeah.
It takes a special person to play a tuba.
A lot of hot air. Got it. So, so you're doing marching band, you're playing the flute, and you realize, this is not everybody doing this, and so I want to play the trombone. And do you still play the trombone?
Not as much as I'd like to. I kind of miss playing stuff. I can still play it.
Right.
And I still have my trombone, but
you just don't get a chance to play too often.
It's not really in the scheme of things. So.
Yeah. I wonder if there's, and this, I'm going off on a tangent. I'm doing the kindergarten thing right now. I'll bet you there is a number of people who just do regular jobs that are, teachers or, cops or plumbers or whatever, and they play an instrument, but they don't play their instrument anymore. They don't get a chance to do it. And it still sits, collects dust or whatever. And they're like, one day I'm going to get back to it or something like that. Yeah. And, if you could take everybody that does that or that has that and say, hey, everybody, we're going to meet down at the park. Everybody, you just put a thing on, Facebook, whatever. We're going to come down, bring your instrument that you want to play that you just haven't played. It's not in the cards or the time's not. Bring it down. And we're just gonna go over a couple things. We'll have somebody that plays all the time, kind of give you a real quick reminder. Oh yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. That's right. Get everything set. And then this whole regular person band of 120 people are out there just blown away. And then all of a sudden they go home. There's this newfound, I want to play my instrument all the time. And then I think, and yes, I went off on a tangent, but I think that'd be kind of cool. And I'll bet you there's hundreds of people.
I'm sure there are.
I
actually grew up where I grew up. We had a band like that.
Yeah.
And some of the high school kids and the younger kids would go sit in that band with all the community members and the older people. And it was a lot of fun. We played in the park, just like you said. So,
and I think that would be cool. But alas. I just said alas, ALAS. It probably is not to happen. But if you decide that you want to get it going, I will support you in it.
Excellent.
I'll bring my drum set down and play with you guys. So.
Oh no, it all makes sense now.
Yeah,
you're a drummer.
Yeah, exactly. So you're playing trombone, you're playing flute, and everything like that, and you do marching band. So you're practicing all the time when the football players aren't practicing because you have to go do halftimes and stuff, right?
Right.
So when they're not doing their practices, you have to practice.
Yep.
So that you can be their halftime of their games, and do whatever other Christmas parades and all these other things, right?
It's like you've lived my childhood.
No, I paid attention when other kids did it because I know that there's the high school that's over by our house, in our city. They sit there and you have people saying, "Well, how come they're playing till 10 o'clock at night?" Well, because that's when they have to practice. Because the football team is on the field every other time, but they need that whole field to practice because that's where they're going to be doing their stuff anyways. That and then playing in the stands and things like that when you're wearing the whole outfit and you're either in the weather, you're either in the sun, or you're in the rain, right?
Yeah, actually sun or rain was a good day for us. Playing a brass instrument where I grew up, when you weren't playing, you kept it inside your uniform to keep it warm. Otherwise, it would freeze to your face.
That's okay.
So
when you wet your lips and and you go to blow on that thing, it's freezing and like the kid on A Christmas Story.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have a trombone stuck to your face.
Right.
That's good. So you're going through school and you graduated school, obviously. I'm assuming you did.
Yes.
Unless you're lying about something. You graduate school and you do music and marching band and all that stuff like that. Did you go to like college based off of any kind of music scholarship, or did you just, I'm just going to go to college anyways, or?
I just went.
Yeah.
I was actually one of the first people in my family to go to college, in extended family on my mom's side anyway. One of my local family members, I was the first to go. I went close because that was cheap, and I got some scholarships, but not a ton, not enough to really make it easy.
Right.
So
you go to college though, and did it just like, I know I'm going to be a teacher, so I got to go to college for teacher stuff? Or did you go to college because you wanted to do something else? Was the teacher thing kind of in the back, or was that always in the forefront?
Teacher was always in the forefront, and music was always in the forefront, because I don't know that I ever knew how to do anything else, because I, not just band, but I also was in all of the choirs, and so that was my comfort zone.
Right.
And it seemed like it was going to be easy, which going to college to be a music teacher is not easy. I'm just going to throw that out there for people who think music is easy.
Yeah. Why is that?
It's very mathematical.
Sure.
Music is, and I'm not a math person.
Yeah.
It actually took a lot of persistence for me to get through. Also, music teachers, PE teachers, the outside the specialists,
right,
have to learn all the same stuff that all the other teachers learn, but then their own stuff on top of it.
So if you wanted to be a history teacher, all you have to do is you have to do basic stuff and then go down the history line.
Right.
But you want to be a music teacher, you have to learn all this different stuff, history and math and all these other things.
Yeah.
And aside to music.
Right. And it's a K-12 endorsement, so we have to learn all of the age levels. You don't just choose, I'm going to do elementary school and learn that age group.
Right.
So you student teach in all of the age levels. You student teach elementary, middle, and high. And you have to be able to do band and strings and voice and elementary.
Wow.
So there's a lot more to it than just music.
So you could do so you're kindergarten teacher, which is like herding cats.
Yeah, for sure.
But you could go sub or work at the high school and do band or music there.
Yes.
If need be.
Yeah. And as a sub, I subbed the first year after I got my teaching license, and I could sub any grade, anything.
Right.
So that was crazy. But
so you go to school, and you all 4 years, 7 years, 12 years?
it took me 5 for my 4-year degree.
Okay.
Actually, it took me 5 plus an extra year of not actually going to school because I did not pass piano proficiency, and I had to wait another year for it to roll around so that I could pass.
Did you know the piano before you went in?
Yeah. It's the reason I didn't pass piano proficiency was because you had to be able to sight read a score.
Oh, really?
That's my brain didn't do that.
So sight reading is, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're going to explain it, but I'm going to try to butcher it real quick.
Okay.
Where you're looking at something, somebody says, "Here, play this." Puts a sheet of music, and you have to just play it right then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to, "Oh, give me a chance to warm this up and practice it."
Yeah. Which I've often argued because my son's doing the same thing right now. And I'm like, I would never put myself in a situation where I would have to sight read a piano score when I know I can't do it. Right. My brain doesn't work that way because when you sight read piano, you have to be able to read the treble and bass clef all at once.
Right.
And my single line trombone flute brain is like, oh no, So the person who didn't pass me the first time I took it went on sabbatical, and then the next person let me have 24 hours to prepare the piece, and then I passed. So,
and like, I'm never going to do that again.
Yeah.
Right. So you say a score. Mm-hmm. That's not just a page from a hymnal where you're like, I don't know what.
So for sight
Ave
reading,
Maria or something like that.
No, for sight reading, usually it was actually something similar to reading out of a hymnal.
Oh, okay.
But the full score being treble and bass clef all together.
Right, and it's multiple pages.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
where you have to play, turn the page, or move the page, and all that stuff like that yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't have a page turner?
No.
See, yeah, that. Yeah, moving on.
Yeah, moving on, because being a page turner is also a very traumatic experience that I've had in my life.
Because you got to be able to read that and know where they're at, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that before, and yeah.
So you're doing all this stuff. You're learning all the music, and you're learning all the school things, and you realize that eventually you're getting close to graduating, and. Did you know where you were going to go work? Did you have an idea?
No. In the process of all that, I also met my now husband. He was also a music major. He was a year behind me. But he wasn't going to be finished when we finished the undergraduate work. He wanted to go on and do something with a master's or something. So after we got married and I graduated, we actually ended up moving. He went to Washington State and got his master's in piano performance. Oh,
so he could sight read then, apparently.
Yeah, he's also my bad page turning traumatic experience. But yeah. So to rub it in, I can't really play the piano, but he can do just about anything he wants to on the piano.
Oh, really?
But that's okay because now he plays things for me when I need it. So.
Does he play often?
Not as often as he should.
So he's the other guy we're going to drag and have somebody pushing a piano down the street to get him in the park.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. He actually plays in a couple of bands. You may have seen him, but...
Probably.
Yeah.
So you meet him. You're going to school there. You're trying to figure out you're going to graduate, and he goes to Washington. Did you guys get married while you're in school? Still a little bit of time after you got out of school?
We got married and moved the next fall.
And so he kept his graduate work going.
Yep, and I worked in fast food while he finished his graduate for a couple of years.
And you paid off all your student loans by French fries and hamburgers.
I wish.
Yeah.
I hope to pay off my student loans before I retire, but right now it's not looking good.
So you start doing that. You're doing part-time work at a full-time pace. but looking for work at this point.
Yeah, well, so at this point, I have my undergraduate degree, but there was still one more year to get my teaching certificate. So I don't have that yet until we move back from him finishing his master's at Washington State, and then we go back to the school that we went to before to get our teaching certificates, because he was a performance major, and all of a sudden he realized you can't really do anything as a musician as a performance major.
Right.
It's hard to find a job that way.
Sure.
So he decided to get his teaching certificate too. So we went through the ed program together to get our license.
So you guys go get your license together, and then you realize did you start work at the same time about?
He started a year before I did. He got hired into a music job here in town. We both applied, and there were a couple of openings, but he got hired and I didn't. So he was in a job, and I subbed for a year.
Okay. And so then you finally got picked up the next year. Is that right?
Yeah.
So when you got hired, was it middle school that you got hired for?
Yeah.
And was it music or was it
choir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now the fact that you were always able to go and change into other stuff, were you able to go in? Did you always get to do music, or did you have to go do? I know when you subbed, you had to do whatever they gave you.
Right. When I subbed, I took what I could get so I could get paid. But yeah, other than that, I've always been in music. So
once you were your own, then you music classes, music teacher, and stuff like that. So there was this little known movie. You probably have never seen this. Is what was that guy? It was his. It had I can't remember the name of the actor now. Mr. Holland's Opus.
I was going to say, is it
Probably
Richard Dreyfuss?
Never seen that movie, have you?
Never.
That has no bearing on anything that you.
Yeah.
If you've watched that movie, did you see any kind of similarities with the starting out, the growth, the connection with students, and then the leaving and the all that stuff? I mean, so it's a huge tearjerker for you. Yeah, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
So, are you able to totally relate to what he's saying, what he's doing, or is there some kind of fictionality to that? There's a little bit of Hollywood to it.
I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of Hollywood in that kind of stuff. It kind of resonates with me in a lot of ways because I also have a special needs kid. But one of the things I joked about it all along, because as a music teacher, as a specialist, you don't have a kid for a year and pass them on.
Right.
So even in middle school, most of the kids I had for 3 years.
Right.
And at the end of their 8th grade year, I would sob as they got on their bus and left because I didn't know if I was going to see them again. I didn't know. I get very, very attached to my kids.
Right.
And I just called them my kids because that's what I do.
Right.
So
you get attached to them. Like you said, you get 3 years with them. In the kindergarten, you start them there, and they say they go to school they don't move, nothing like that.
Yeah.
You got 5 years of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now, is kindergarten do they have to take music classes for school? Do they have to take music for the whole 5 years if they're in grade school?
Yeah.
So they always have you as a teacher. And so they're always looking at, so you are the one teacher they know of. So because when they go in first grade, they have a teacher, and then second grade has a totally different teacher, but they still have the music class.
Music teacher and the PE teacher,
That stays the same the whole time.
And this year is my first group that I've had the entire time since kindergarten until 5th grade.
Oh, really?
So last year was rough because we didn't get to say goodbye to our 5th graders because of the whole COVID thing, and I had them since first grade. Wow. So, but yeah, I get very emotionally attached and want to know what's going on with them. So
and so when you see them in high school, and you go to a performance because, oh, hey, they're doing a play at the school, and you decide to go, and you see somebody that you had in kindergarten. That was you see this whole connection of the years that they've grown, or you see something in the newspaper that they're leading a play, a local play. Yeah, that's a huge thing, right?
It is.
Because I had something to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a source of pride because I love to see their accomplishments and what they're doing going forward. Yeah. Especially the ones which I'm sure you know about, the kids that struggle and have trouble and life just sucks for.
Yeah, because it's not cool home. They're
right.
The happy place is at school.
Right. And to see them move on and be successful it's a really big deal.
Right. So going back, I'm gonna go. So you get hired at a school as a middle school teacher, and you did that for how long? You said.
I was in middle school for 15 years. So I started out part time at 1.
Yeah.
And then I moved to half-time because I built the program up enough to have enough students to have 3 different classes.
Right.
And then I moved to working at both middle schools, but I still wasn't quite full-time. So then for a year I taught band, elementary band, to expand my schedule to full-time. And then for a year I taught elementary strings. And then... So the year I taught strings at the school that I work at now. So I taught strings there for the year before I moved there as their music teacher.
Right.
So,
right. So you go in and you're working, you're doing all these different things. And was your husband working at the same school?
No, we've never worked in the same building. So.
Okay. Now he's not just a regular teacher. He's got a little bit higher authority, doesn't he?
He does. He's a principal now, so...
Right, so...
Yeah.
So you're marrying up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
you
go
married
with
up.
that. Yeah.
Well, he was a year younger than you, a year behind you, and then he graduated.
Yeah.
And then
It's
he got
true.
a job
I did
before.
marry up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to argue that.
So no, I think your husband's cool. I've met him several times, and he's just always got a smile on his face, and he always just wants to. He's there for the kiddos, and then he's extremely fair, and he like gets on their level when he talks with them and stuff like that. And I was like, that is cool that he takes the time out and makes sure that he knows who the kids are, and gets on their level and deals with them, whatever their issues might be and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So, you're going to school and you're teaching at school, not so much going to school, but when you go to work, you get to go to school.
Yeah.
And
true.
so when you see these kids and you see them growing and you see them becoming who they are, you say you get attached to them, but at what point does it ever get easy to say, hey, goodbye, or you graduated, or any of that stuff, or is it?
It's not as hard as it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's still that last day when we do the moving on ceremony or whatever it is, and you know that those kids are going to walk out of the building and you may not see them again. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's ever going to be easy.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the day that starts to get easy is probably when I should do something different.
Right.
So.
That means you don't care anymore?
I don't know if it means I don't care, but it might mean that I'm worn out.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Maybe you need to take a break. Well, you've had a whole year to have a break anyway. So
yeah, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that's cool. So, where you and I first met, I kind of want to take it to this point is, so I, just so for everybody that's listening, I, for 3 years, and possibly this is going to be year number 4, I coordinate what's called a Citizens Public Safety Academy through the police department. And what we do is we bring in citizens from all over the city and say, hey, if you want to learn how the police do everything they do, all the who, what, why, where, and hows of everything we do, and you want to shoot our guns, you want to drive our cars, and you want to do some defensive tactics and fight with the cops and everything else like that, legally, not on the street. But you sign up for this class. Well, I remember seeing, I go through and I pick the people, and it's usually on a first come, first served basis, and we have about 25 to 30 people in the class. And I remember you got picked, I think just because your application was like the 5th or 6th one that got received. But then I thought, oh, hey, I recognize that name. I think that I think you were a teacher, and I think I saw your name on like a door or whatever at the school. And so, I thought it'd be great to have a teacher in the class, because if nothing else, I don't think teachers they're not our adversaries in any way, but I think that there's sometimes a disconnect between the teachers and the police, because, a lot of the kids, they'll go in and be like, oh, the police arrested mommy or daddy or whatever, and the teachers are like, oh, I'm sorry that happened, and they console the kiddos. And so how could the cops take away this kid's parent and be so mean? Or, there's just maybe a misunderstanding of some teachers to police officers. Now, that's not 100% across the board, because I've met, I don't know, many teachers who are like, no way, man, we support you guys 100%, and that's awesome. So, but I thought it would be great to get teachers in there to see what we do so they can go ahead and take it back and to schools. And so when the kids say, hey, the police and blah, 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 they say, no, the police aren't there to take you away or take mommy, daddy away. They're not there to do anything like that. They're actually there to help. They provide protection, and they're there for everybody. When you need help, that's what they do. And they're there to be your friends. So I said, if there's a teacher, let's get her into the class. And you came into the class, and of this class of about 30 people we had, and obviously some people drop out in the class because just time gets away from them, or they didn't realize what it would take to put into it. But you were probably the most, I don't know, consistently bubbly person in that class. There are people that were just like, oh, I'm just doing this for, I don't know why. And I didn't know why some people were doing it either. Yeah. But you had a very positive attitude and wanted to be there and wanted to soak up all the knowledge of everything we did. And I think the fun stuff you enjoyed way more. So like the shooting guns and the driving our cars and the defensive tactics where you got to fight the guy in the whole padded suit thing. And
when the guy threw me on the ground in like less than a second.
And that stinking guy, I'm telling you, jerk. Do you remember who that was?
I feel like it's someone kind of close, but yeah.
You mean like physically close right now in the room? Yeah. So, but that's
Except
the
that
idea.
I really wanted to analyze that and try again and see if I could stay up just a little bit longer, but it was too hot.
That suit it's a blazer. So I'll tell you what. But no, so that's the cool thing is that you came in there with this very positive attitude, and you said, I'm going to take this information and I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to go back to work, and I'm going to tell everybody about this. And I have since gone back to your school and some other schools and been like, oh, I want to do that class. Vicky's talked so much about it. She thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And so we've actually had other teachers come in. I think the librarian, she came in, and if you guys think the librarian, she's looking over her glasses down to the end of her nose at you and just tapping her ruler or whatever, not this one. She came in and she kicked butt on it, and she had a great attitude as well. So, but you get in and you spend all this time with kiddos, and you spend all this time trying to learn, the ins and outs. And so, what are some of the things that you've learned specifically about? I don't even specifically, some things you've learned about people by learning about kids.
One of the things that I've learned, especially through this whole COVID thing, I've experienced some new things, and I've learned that the toughest kids probably have the toughest life outside of school.
And so tough like in like the tough kid that walks around like he's a tough guy, or like a kid who doesn't put a lot of emotion into things?
The kids who struggle the most, the kids who seem to overreact a lot, that you can't really reason with, and you just wonder, why are they acting the way they're acting? Yeah. Usually it's not the kid. It's life outside of school.
Right. And then you meet their parents? Yeah. At a conference or something? And then...
It's not even so much conferences. As a music teacher, I don't get to do a lot of conferences, but like when COVID started last year, we have a thing that we do that's called One District, One Book. Right. And COVID started and the kids didn't have their books. Right. And so one of the teachers really, really wanted the kids to have their books so that we could do this. So I volunteered to deliver books. Oh. So I got to go to people's houses and go, okay, wow. Yeah. I had a dad come out and swear at me and ask me what he was getting served for this time, because I came up with an envelope with the book in it. Right. And he was like, why are you here this time? Why am I getting served papers? And I was like, okay.
School stuff, man.
Yeah,
School stuff.
It's a book. It's a book. Here, have the book. Don't even have the book. Whatever you want to do. And kids would see you, and we weren't allowed to touch anybody. You're not allowed to hug. You're not allowed to do anything. And they would be so excited to see you. And then you'd have to be like, sorry, so
wave at them through a window and all that stupid stuff. Yeah,
it was crazy. But I got to see a lot of things that were kind of eye-opening. And the other thing is with my husband and the job that he's in, that also has opened my world up to things that I didn't know were happening to our school kids. So
so are you able to learn, I guess, how to deal with people in general by learning how to deal with kids? Because I would assume that a kiddo is just a person that, like you said before, is totally honest, totally open, and all this different stuff. When adults, we hide stuff and we hold things back and we do all these things that we don't want somebody to know about our personal life or think that we are hiding something. When kids, they think they might be hiding something, but they're not. It's obviously, it's all out there in the open. You can kind of see how a kid is and look at how their day's going or how their morning went by the way that they shuffle into school or whatever. Are you able to kind of see that, and does that give you a different, perspective on how adults work, or not so much?
Adults are hard. Like you said, kids you can sort of sort out a little bit better once you kind of figure out the workings.
Right.
In some cases, some kids you're never gonna know what that trauma was that makes them act the way they act.
Right.
But I mentioned that I have a special needs kid, and putting him through school and trying to sort out the issues because he was considered defiant for a long time.
Right.
And that wasn't what his problem was. And that actually has read into my teaching as far as how I look at the way kids are acting. There's a reason that the kid is acting that way. I need to figure out what it is.
Right.
So
because you got to be able to teach them
right
to a way that they'll take this in.
Exactly. And no kid learns the same.
Right.
So that's something I don't think I'm ever going to be done learning how to do that. Just teaching things from different directions, trying to help kids understand.
Right.
So
you said that you have kids from kindergarten up to 5th grade, so 6 years of kids of the same kid. Do you notice the difference between the 5th grader and the kindergarten of the same kid, and how do they change learning, or do they change? Obviously, do they change how they learn? They're going to change their maturity. They're going to change their personality, maybe just a little bit. But does their learning ability or the way they learn change?
It can. I see that a lot, actually, and it really kind of depends on the classroom teacher. It depends on their understanding of how to teach the kid, and also the other specialists that can help kids that are having, struggles,
right,
whether it be emotional or just education-wise, not understanding.
Right.
But it's really, really rewarding to get to watch a kid who, in kindergarten, you're really not sure is going to make it.
Yeah.
And you watch them struggle and try, and people work with them, and then you get to see them succeed, even if it's just elementary school, but they made it through elementary school.
Right.
It's one of the most rewarding things, and probably, that emotional tie that I get at the end when they're moving on. It's pretty incredible. I have a student right now that was a kindergartner last year. He's a first grader this year,
right,
who he couldn't sit still. You couldn't get him. He just couldn't. You could see that he couldn't. It wasn't because he didn't want to. But through the year of extra help, in some cases, even through COVID, he can sit still and he listens and he answers questions just in a year.
Wow.
He's just grown by leaps and bounds. And those are the moments that make it all worth it. Right. And that's not me. That's their overall education and somebody putting time into them to get them where they need to be.
Right. Right. And no, I think I agree with that. Because I think I was one of those kids that couldn't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
I was just always up, and I would always get, "Kenny Fraunfelter," because I had the Irish nun. "You sit down right now." And so I'd always get in trouble for that and all this different stuff. And I think it even follows now. Like we went on a cruise. Yeah, we went to Mexico a couple years ago, and my wife had no problem. She could sit by the pool and lay by the pool all day, go get some drinks, and be by the pool. Go walk over to the pool, put her feet in, get back up, get in the chair, read her book, and just stay there the whole time. Me, I kept getting up. "You need another drink? I'll go get a drink. I'm going to go over here. Oh, it's French fries. Oh, French fries are free. I got to get some French fries. I'll get some ice cream. I'm going to go over here. Oh, I forgot something out the room. I got to run to the room. I got to come back. And I'm always moving around, and I couldn't, like, she just sit down. She's like, just sit down. And, okay, so I'd sit there, like, "Oh, my drink's empty." "You just sat down." "Yeah, but I guess I drank it before I sat down." "Oh, I want to get in the pool. It's getting really hot. I should go get in the pool. I'm gonna go get in the pool, get back out, go lay down. 5 minutes. And then, okay, I got to go do something. And so I was always on the move, and I was always doing something. And so she's fine being that person that sits by the pool the whole vacation. I'm like, I got to go. And so it's this whole, we know about it. We talk about it with each other. Right. And so I think looking back at myself, I see why I do what I do now, because I just couldn't at the time. Mm-hmm. I couldn't just sit still. I mean, if it was something I was really interested in, like there are some books, you know, that we'd have a guest reader come in and read a book or something like that. And that got me every time. We had this one kid whose dad was his mom was like super Irish, and his dad was not. He was just like he was from like Jersey or something like that. So they came in, and his dad would always come in and tell stories, not read them, but he would tell these stories. And he was this master storyteller, and he'd bait you in there and then do the whole thing where he's like, and so the lion creeped up and the lion roared at everybody. Right. And so it was like all the kids were like jumping back. Right. And so that's the sort of thing that I remember. Just, I could sit still for that because it got me. And that started how I started learning how people learn differently. Because looking at myself, that I'm not the kind that can just sit back and I can just do a bunch of math problems and be fine. Yeah. And be the A+ student, because that's absolutely not what I was. But I learned differently. And then there's things I have to teach myself. And so I would think that these kids that you're struggling with are eventually gonna, if they're honest with themselves and they because they want to, and you correct me if I'm wrong, kids want to please, right? They want to please the adults in their life, and do you ever see the kids that don't?
Yes.
Are they some of the tough kids?
They are, because no matter how hard you try, there's always going to be those kids you can't fix.
Right. Because
as an educator, you want to fix. You want to teach. You stopped me because I was going to explain something when you said that.
I'm sorry.
No. Earlier, because I don't even remember what it was, but you're like, when we were talking about reading a score. Oh, okay. And I started to tell you, and you were like, wait, no, let me guess. So, you can look at some kids and just in your gut know that they're going to fail. Yeah. And that's heartbreaking because there's nothing you can do. Right. You hope that they find that one person at some point that can get in there and help them, but you can't get to every single one of them, and that's one of the tough things.
Now, you have all these teachers that care, and all these teachers that you work with, these professionals that want to see these kids succeed and move on and become these great contributions to society. Mm-hmm. But everybody is who they are. And I think are there kids who can't, they need this one type of person, and that one type of person may not be at your school. Yeah. Or within your district.
Absolutely.
And so then that one kid may kind of, had they just had this one person that was able to put this much time or this much effort, or said the thing one different way, that would have made it different, right?
Right. Or not have the one person who said that one thing the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, that happens to the best of us. Things come out wrong. Or you mentioned when you were talking about being in school how some teachers probably owed you an apology. Yeah. One of the things that I try really hard to do is, if I make a mistake, it's not the kid's fault. And if they're ever going to learn how to have, access that kind of stuff, I need to be willing to apologize too. So,
well, I think that shows humility on your part and shows the kids that's how a leader really acts. They're humble. A leader is humble. And so I think you're doing more than just showing them. So a treble clef is this and and this is a B major and blah, 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 right? I think you're doing more than that. You're showing them how adults should act, how adults should be, by being humble and being that person that is willing to apologize and open themselves up to things that they may not see otherwise. They may not see, an adult being humble because they go home to an abusive family life.
Right.
So, there's the things that you say, I want to make sure that if I'm doing something, I want to make sure I correct it or I take ownership for it by letting the kid know that I'm sorry. Or
yeah. Well, and one of the things that I say on a regular basis in my classroom is, do I expect you to be perfect?
Yeah.
And they all know. No.
Good.
And then my answer is, okay, as soon as I'm perfect, I'll expect you guys all to be perfect too. So we're on the same page, right? So I say that a lot.
It takes a huge load off them.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, and when I make a mistake, not every single time, but a lot of times I'll call it, oh,
yeah.
Did you see what I just did? All right, let's try again. Right. So a lot of them don't have somebody in their life that, like you said, that will claim that and own it and be like, okay, yeah, I messed up and it's okay. Let's try again. Let's move on.
Right.
Even with the really tough kids who get really mad at you, you have the kids that throw things and do all of that stuff. And you learn that you can't reason with that kid and fix that in the moment, but you learn that you need to go back and talk to them later when they're in their right mind. And when you're not angry and upset and trying to protect a whole bunch of other kids, then you have a conversation with that kid and they can tell you what really happened.
Right.
Because they couldn't right then.
Right, because their emotions are clouding everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
No, I think that's great because a lot of kids, I'm not saying every single one of them, but a lot of them may not have that opportunity to see that adults, they'll make mistakes and they can come back and they can kind of adjust themselves and be like, oh, so they don't know everything. Oh, they do make mistakes. Oh, but that's how you deal with it. Because I remember being a kid and thinking, oh, they know how to do all these things and they can do all multitasking and they do all these things and they don't mess up. And, so you start getting down on yourself and your self-esteem is low and whatever. But as you become an adult, you start realizing I'm still my kid. I'm still this kid person in my brain that I thought I was. But I've learned how to adjust and learn how to not do certain things and how to do certain things. And then you go into working on being a better person. And if you humble enough to share that and say, hey, this is what we do. We mess up. And like I said, I think there's some people that think that showing humility is a weakness. And then they tell their kids, you're weak if you do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair to the kids. So
it's not. It's not any more fair than taking the use of the world and saying you need to sit still at your desk and do your work.
Right.
It's the okay, I can see that you can't sit still. Why don't you go stand over there in the corner?
Yeah.
And pace if you need to, and okay, just try not to be a distraction. That's
right.
Do what you can and see if you can. And some kids can stand up in the corner and, you give them a square or a circle. And as long as they can move around, they can actually pay attention. And when you ask them questions later, they heard what you were talking about, even though you were sure they were not paying any kind of attention.
Right.
So
like the kid that I know people who can sit there and they're listening to a speaker at a conference or something like that. And they're just doodling and they have this big old flower by the end of the day. But then they can take all that information back. It's in their brain. They remember what was said, and they can go back. They don't take notes on, things or whatever. They just doodle, and so their brain just absorbs it.
Yeah.
And so we look at people like, oh, you're not even paying attention. I am. I don't subscribe to the sit in a desk, shut your mouth, and the Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Right.
And
that's the way it was when we were kids. That was the right way to do it.
Right. And do you know where that came from?
No.
I learned this just somewhat recently. The way that we learn is kind of reminiscent of the whole why are these words escaping me today? The Industrial Revolution.
Oh.
So we would start getting people off the farms and bringing them into factories. So they would work at factories and they would make a little thing and make a widget, put it on the assembly line, make a widget. And so that's what they would do. So everybody would be sitting. So you've seen those old black and white pictures of people sitting out there, and everybody was in a row. It was in rows,
wow.
That was if you look at schools, that's what desks used to be. It's just these rows. So they were conditioning kids to be set up for working in factories.
Oh, wow.
And so
interesting.
And so we were just sardining our kids to conform to work in this factory. Because then you look at, as we started working and getting into the 70s and 80s, people were at computers. But you look at those old pictures and they're, once again, in rows of just computers. And then that's what they expected everybody to do, you know. But you got people that were construction workers or plumbers or, you know, police officers or all these people that they didn't have a job where they can just stay in a row, stay in line and make their widget and move on, right? So they start realizing, hey, that kid, he's a dunce, so he's not falling in line. But that dunce turns into a pro boxer, or he turns into like I said, a plumber or something like that, to where now, he's not going to. That's not his thing. He might, back in the old days, they'd sit on a stool with a dunce cap on. Mm-hmm. He wasn't stupid. He just didn't learn the way you wanted him to learn. So, but that's where, at least that's my understanding of how we started teaching people. And so now, like you're saying, you start seeing these kids, everybody learns differently because everybody's different. Everybody's going to be different. And so you might be able to sit still in a math class because that's where your brain, you get that. But I can't sit still in a English class because that's just not, it's boring to me or whatever. Yeah.
So can I take you back to something?
Take me back.
So when you were talking about letting me be in the, bringing me into the CPSA class, and you said that you wanted a teacher in there to sort of bring back some knowledge. Right. It's really kind of funny because the reason that I wanted to be in there was because when I started to work at the elementary school that I work at now, it's one of the lower class schools with, a lot more
financially lower class.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. So a lot more struggles, and I wanted to be able to have those kids be comfortable around law enforcement. Sure. And, fire, AMR, all of that stuff, because they had such bad experiences around it. Right. So it's funny because we were on the same page, but from opposite sides. Right. Right. So started having law enforcement and fire police come in to read and, do assemblies and that kind of stuff. So that those kids had only seen you in a really negative light. Yeah. Could see that you're not bad guys, that you're there to help, and the unfortunate reality is that in that situation you had to do your job, and it was detrimental to them and their family. Right. But I wanted them to see that you guys were just people. Right. And we had one little girl, and you probably don't remember this, but when we had you come in and start doing the holiday lunches. Okay, yeah, go in for. So there was one Christmas little girl, that wouldn't enter the room when you guys were there in uniform. She would not come in because she was scared, because she had been put in foster home a couple of times. She's been in and out of her house, and I would talk to her, and she's like, no. And by having you come in and do the assemblies and read to the kids and do the stuff that you were doing, she was never going to come up and tell you, she wasn't going to come and give you a hug. Right. But we got her to the point where she wasn't afraid to be in the room with you anymore, where it was okay to sit in the assembly, even though there were people in uniforms there. And that was a really big deal to me. And that meant a lot to me for you guys. Yeah. And going through the CPSA class and getting a more in-depth look at what you all go through on a day-to-day basis, and and just trying to throw some positives your way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in my book, you guys are the heroes. So
Sure.
I that was really important. So I just wanted to throw that out there before.
Right. No, that's awesome, because we don't even know that. We don't know who doesn't like us for that reason, or doesn't just because they don't know.
Yeah.
There's just a lack of
And she
knowledge.
was scared of you. She was legit scared to be in a room with you.
That we were gonna. I was gonna pick her up and say, "You got to go to a different house now."
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
And I think that goes towards the idea that we don't educate ourselves. We just have this preconceived, everybody, and this is everybody, not just me, not just you, not just the kiddos, but every single person on this planet. We go through this thing where we may not educate ourselves enough on things we don't know about. And it's not so much we have to know the ins and out, but have a basic knowledge of how people work and how things work. The police don't just come and rip kids out of homes and say you have to go here. We don't just take your parents because it's time for them to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Everything we do is, there's a reason behind it. We have to be able to reason it and articulate why it is we did what we did. And unfortunately, it's hard to tell a kid that your dad, who loves you and shows you love or whatever, they hurt somebody, and that maybe somebody else that you love, or they did something that they shouldn't have done, and that's why we had to take them. And so I'll go into kindergartens or preschools or something, and I'll say, so the same rules that kids have, adults have. You can't hurt each other. You can't take what's not yours. You can't be mean. Sometimes you can't say certain things. You can't say bad words, whatever. In the adult world, it's a little bit different. So when adults do that, they have to, what do kids get? Kids get time out, right? Mm-hmm. Adults get time out too. They got to put handcuffs on. We put these bracelets on. They're really fancy bracelets. And we have to take them in our car, and we take them to the timeout place. And they can spend time out there. Then when they're done, they come out and they can go back home most of the time.
Right.
But it's hard to explain to a kid that, somebody hurt somebody. And so when you hear that they're afraid of us, you're just like, I don't know. How do I fix that?
Right.
And I don't think that I'm in the position to fix that sometimes.
No.
That's why we need people like you to come alongside these kiddos and help fix that, or be that voice of reason, because you spend it every day, all day with them. They know who you are, and they trust you, and they respect you, and they love you, and they're happy to see you, and you sometimes are that piece that they don't have at home or whatever. So it makes a difference. And so when you tell us these stories, that's fantastic. I think that's awesome, because how do we know? How do we know how to fix it? And we may not even know that we have that issue, that we have that effect on people.
Yeah.
So,
well, and having you guys come in and read and do all of that stuff, that also makes you more approachable.
right.
Because they see that you're not always, that person who's on the job, who's coming to do whatever it is you have to do in that situation.
Right.
You are a person. And even myself, knowing that I try really hard to be a law-abiding citizen and follow the speed limit. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, man, I just caught myself speeding. Now, if I got pulled over by one of the motorcycle cops, because it's going to be one of those guys, I'm going to know that they're just doing their job,
right,
and that I screwed up and I need to own it.
Right.
And I always have had that in the back of my mind, but taking that class made that a little bit different and made me be like, being in that class was the same as sort of having you in the building to see the kids. Okay, these guys are just out there doing their jobs.
Right.
And they're going to do what they have to do to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing bringing you in. Okay, look, he's just a guy. He can read a book. And sometimes he stumbles when he's reading, and that's okay, because he just keeps going, and they see the human side of you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, really important.
Yeah. No, and I agree, because I remember being a kid and seeing teachers, and I thought they were, I don't know, more than human. It was because I knew my mom, and I knew my mom's friends and all these adults and my aunts and uncles and everybody. But then I knew my teachers, and that was always Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Pearson or Mrs. whoever. And and that was always who they were. You see them at a grocery store. It's like, oh, there's Mrs. Pearson. Oh, hey, and they're like, oh, you don't talk to them or whatever. You don't be disrespectful and all this different stuff. But then now, as I'm an adult, I know teachers, and I'm like, oh, that's Vicky. That's not Mrs.
Right.
So the
kids
whole
get really surprised to see you in the grocery store.
yeah.
You don't live at the school?
Yeah.
You buy food outside of, whoa.
Yeah. So that totally blows your mind that
Yeah.
you see them as
Yeah.
humans, And,
Yeah.
and so I think they do the same thing with police officers. They see me out of uniform.
It's weird for me to see you out of uniform.
Yeah. Because there's actually a couple kids who go to school, at the various schools that I go visit, or go, like you said, I go read at schools. And so we'll go on like Dr. Seuss Day, or we'll actually go into libraries and read to kids in our uniforms. But there's a couple kids who also go to the karate class that I teach, and they know me in these two outfits. So they normally see me in my karate gi, but they don't. And then I'll come to school and they're like looking at me like, oh, wow, okay, I'm wearing a whole uniform now. Or vice versa. I saw you at my school. Yeah. And sometimes there's a connection, and sometimes there's not. They don't get it, and they're like, "How do I know you?"
Uh-huh.
But it's just weird for them, and that's what they've said, that it's just odd to see that connection. So I think it's very beneficial that you learn whatever other people do, what they go through, so that you can help teach that and help others understand that side of things, so there's not a frustration.
Yeah.
So you finish. I'm going to kind of go back for a second now. You finished middle school, and did you decide, hey, I want to go work at an elementary, or that's an opportunity there, and you're like,
It's kind of funny because I had always intended to teach elementary school. Going back to, I'm not a piano player, right? So why would I teach choir? I'm a believer that God puts us where he wants us. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, I did have an accompanist when I started teaching choir, but by the time I finished teaching choir, I didn't. I had a piano player that could play for concerts, but for the most part, minus a couple of rehearsals in class, I was my own person trying to hang on and teach these kids. So a couple of music jobs at the elementary schools had opened at the same time. And at this point, there's a shortage of music teachers, and they're having trouble filling them. Mm-hmm. So the teacher who left the school that I was at was going to teach higher level over in a nearby town. And so I just kind of tossed out to our HR department, hypothetically, what would happen if you can't fill that position if I were to step down and that teacher stepped up into my position. And literally on the last day of school that year, I said goodbye to all of my kids. Mm-hmm. And I got a call from HR, and he said, I'm coming down to talk to you right now. And that day I stepped down from middle school to elementary school because they just didn't have the people. And this way everything was going to be covered. And it was scary. And I spent 3 days packing up 15 years of stuff when I hadn't, really thought I was going to move.
Right.
And sobbing, people going, are you sure you want to do this? And me going, I'm so excited, and just sobbing my way down there. But I also knew the school because I had taught strings there. Mm-hmm. And I knew some of the people. And it actually is a school that when I was subbing, I said, I will never teach at this school.
Oh, really?
Because it was kind of cliquey.
Oh.
And I felt like an outsider when I subbed there. And God has a funny sense of humor because that's where I ended up, and I love it there. And I've never regretted moving down there. Stepping down to elementary,
right.
Not moving down there. But so it literally happened in the course of 24 hours. They let me hang on. I had, as a middle school teacher, I also helped with the high school choir, and they gave me an extra duty contract to keep helping with the high school choir because there was going to be sort of a pay cut involved in stepping down.
Right.
So I've been able to maintain my relationship with the high school choir. I travel with them and help with all their concerts. And then I get to see some of my kids again.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It all just kind of fell into place that way.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it before, but I think it'd be really cool to see that growth of somebody you've not seen in years. And all of a sudden you're looking at them and they're 15.
Yeah.
And the last time you saw them, they were 8, 10, whatever. And you're looking at them and they now have stubble or whatever.
They're, hi, Mrs. Batman.
How you doing today?
Yeah, and you're like, so.
Remember me? I'm Billy.
Yeah. I'm like, in your eyes, I can see someone that I know.
And you're looking up at them and all this different stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I have that with, that 1 year of band that I taught.
Yeah.
And that 1 year of strings that I taught.
Yeah.
Those kids now that are at the high school, and I see them too. It's like, yeah, okay.
So all that sadness when you see them go, and does it rekindle when you see them later, or are you just proud that they are who they are and hear the things that they're going through? And
yeah, I think it usually is just I'm proud. It's really nice to see them, grown up and what they're morphing into. And some of my toughest middle school choir kids work in my building with me now.
Yeah,
as aides.
That's kind of cool.
They went through the alternative high school because they weren't cut out for regular high school, and
because they learned different.
Yeah,
right.
And now I get to. They're my colleagues. I work in the same building as them.
That's kind of cool.
So it's very cool.
And it is. I'm guessing it warms your heart knowing that just because they struggled doesn't mean they were a bad kid. That they.
Yeah.
But they struggled because they needed to find the way in which they needed to learn.
Yeah, and somewhere along the line, they found that person
right
who was able to track them down the direction that they needed to go and help them to be successful and get somewhere.
Right.
When there wasn't maybe a lot of potential for that to happen.
Right. So we've been talking about kids learning differently and kids and people in general learning differently. Are you familiar with all the different ways in which people learn? Is it and how long does it take for you to figure out, hey, this person learns this way, I got to adjust or whatever?
I think, again, as a teacher, if I stopped learning, then I shouldn't be a teacher anymore. But you start to see, oh, wait a minute, I can see that kid, they're totally fading out right now.
Right.
Okay, so I just went a direction that they're not understanding. So I try in my music classes to come at things from written, audible. I try to do things that you can do with your hands because there are some kids that don't learn unless they can do something with their hands. You sort of start to notice just by how they tune out, I guess.
Right.
And sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I need to talk to this kid over here who really, really wants to learn something that's a little bit above you guys. So it's fine. If you're not going to listen to this, you don't have to remember it, but I want to tell this person something right now. And so you kind of have to go at it that way too, because you don't want to lose the kids who really, really want to grasp at something a little bit farther along.
Right.
But for the most part, I think now I tend to be able to read the room after a certain amount of time.
Sure.
You get a new kid and it takes a while because they're settling in and they don't know anybody. And
right. They're not
have
comfortable.
To figure
either.
them out. Yeah.
I guess first day of school.
Yeah.
Of like a new class, not a class that's been there for 4 years or whatever.
Right.
Of a new kindergarten.
Yeah. Or even, yesterday and today, starting back with kids in the classroom, it was like starting school all over because they haven't been in my room.
Oh, right.
I haven't been able to teach them with the equipment that I have in my room. They haven't been able to they really haven't seen my personality, I guess, because my personality doesn't fit on a cart.
Right.
They know that I'm a little quirky and strange.
Sure.
But
we all know this.
so having them come in the room, so yesterday and today it was like, all right, everybody take a minute, look around, stand up if you want to so that you can turn around, see what you see, ask me questions. Because some of them haven't even seen, I have a whole bunch of instruments and stuff in there, right? I don't even know what that is. And over the last year, I've had so much time to reset my room.
Yeah.
So I've moved this here and moved that there. And there's a lot more instruments out where they can see them now. I used to keep them hidden because I didn't want to tempt the kids.
Right.
But now I'm like, you know what? Who cares if they come in and they see a drum and they want to play it?
Right.
Let's do something. Let's do something they enjoy.
Sure. And maybe they wouldn't even have known they enjoyed that until they got a chance to beat on that drum. And like,
right.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
And why does that have to be put away so that it's only, used on this day because that was my lesson plan?
Right.
As I've taught longer, I rely less on this is what I'm supposed to be doing right now and sort of go with the flow of, I guess, what feels good with the kids and what gives them joy, makes them happy. Because there's not, especially with the COVID thing, there hasn't been a lot of that for some of them for a while.
Yeah, a lot of sitting at home or being bored or
So no,
trouble.
I'm sorry. Get out a piece of paper and pencil. We're going to draw a treble clef, and you can write note names.
Right.
Or okay, let's go ahead and go beat the drums.
Sure.
So
I always want to beat the drums. That's the best in the world. So
again, I am not surprised by that.
Okay, so you said that's just the way it is, or that's what you're supposed to. That's what's supposed to happen. And you were mentioning that's what's supposed to happen today or whatever. But do you see this as being something that's supposed to have happened to you? That you being a teacher and these kids being in your life and you being in these kids' lives, is this what you see as that is what has supposed to have happened, or do you think this is all like I just wanted to be a teacher and I'm just having a good time doing that and it's just what it is?
It's definitely what was supposed to have happened. I look back, especially now as a teacher, it wasn't easy for me.
Yeah.
I tried really hard to have good grades, but I had to try really hard to have good grades.
Right.
It was never easy. I fought through all the music classes in college, the piano thing, but that all gives me those things that I can say to the kids, look, I'm not good at math and music is mathematical, but I made it because I just kept trying. When I look at some of those kids that I just get to love on, I don't think it was an accident. Right. So
what would you do if you weren't a teacher?
There was a short stint when I was in college when I took an anthropology class, and I think there's a possibility that I could have been an archaeologist.
Right.
But
like Indiana Jones type?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about that sometimes because you think about, what happens if I get burned out and I can't do what I should be doing. And it would be something to help people, which is weird for me to say when you have me here doing this, but
something to help people, to serve other people, right?
Yeah.
I've had conversations and I've had conversations with other cops and we've all been sitting around and there's been guys that have said, I don't know what I would do if I didn't do this. I don't know how to do other things. And I think if there's a thing where you're doing something and you don't know what else you would do, you don't know what else you could go do. One, you're meant to do that. And two, you're doing it with passion. You're doing whatever you do. You're not just checking boxes. You're not just waiting till the days you retire, but you're doing that thing. So I think when you say, well, I do this, I might be an anthropologist or archaeologist, but aren't they also teachers a lot of times? Right.
You learn from the past to move forward, right?
Right. But aren't they also, they don't just go on these digs or whatever by themselves. Yeah. They've got teams, they've got people.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you're either learning it or you're teaching it.
Yeah.
Because you got somebody coming along with you, right? So I think you're right where you're supposed to be. And so that's why I asked you to come on the show. And so you say, well, I don't see myself as being much of a hero. I see you being a hero because you've got kids in your class who could not do their job. They couldn't be who they are. They couldn't grow up to be contributing members of society. They couldn't be solid people without, it's music. It's not math and it's not these things that people specifically need to, because a lot of people don't do. You yourself said, I don't pull out my trombone. I don't pull out my instrument whenever I want to. I was not taught. I was never taught how to play the drums. However, I have a drum set that's set up 24/7 that I come and sit on, and I try to play every day. I try to sit if I'm not at work, and I'm not bothering people or whatever. It's not midnight or something. But I have that. So having that ability to have music that you can come out and just get that feeling out of you, right? Or you have that opportunity to take that musical knowledge and apply it somewhere else, because it's somehow this same thing, same concept comes out in a professional standard of some kind, right? If people didn't have that ability to be introduced to that by somebody who cares about them, and not just cares about their growth and cares about them moving to the next line, but cares about them as a human being and being a positive person, then where would that person be, right? So I have this thing, and I say it just about every podcast, and it was from the Travis Manion Foundation, and they said, if not me, then who? It was about this Marine who died in Iraq, and his whole thing, people ask him, why do you keep doing this? He goes, if I don't go do it, who's going to go do it? There's a million people waiting in line. There's recruiters that are always picking up guys in the military, and there's a million other teachers. There's people in school right now that are going to be teachers, but they're not where you are right now. They are not. They didn't go through the steps to get to where you are, to become the person you are, to do what you're doing right now and say, hey, this is my job, and this is who I am, and I'm a teacher, and I make sure I love these kids. And you said yourself, I love on these kids, because sometimes they don't get it anywhere else. So you should never, ever, ever sit back and look at yourself and say, why would somebody want me on a hero podcast? Because you're exactly that. You're exactly what hero personifies, putting other people first and making sure other people can be the best they can be. And that's what a hero is. That's huge, because a lot of times we don't have support. We don't have encouragement. Everybody's trying to tear each other down. And you get somebody like you who wants to build these kids up and see them grow. And then when they do leave, because you've done everything you can do, they're now moving on and becoming more. And you're sitting back and you're like, I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss who they are. I'm going to miss their personalities. There's going to be more. Yeah, there's more coming. But that kid right there, that kid has a special place. Everybody has a special place. And if you don't speak in the positivity in these people's lives, who's going to do it? So never second guess yourself for being a hero.
Cry.
So anyways, and I always ask this question: if you could go back and you had an opportunity to make a thing right, or it's after your funeral, and you're given one more day to go back and either make something right, tell somebody something that you didn't get a chance to, or go back and change the way things panned out, what would you do?
I feel like that everything that has happened in my life has happened for a reason, and that's what shaped me.
Mm-hmm.
Do I have regrets? For sure. There were things that I did that were incredibly stupid. I guess my moments would be those times when I didn't understand and I said things that were hurtful.
Yeah.
And didn't know that it was something that I needed to apologize for until it was too late.
Right.
Those would be the moments that I would want to fix with family and students.
Right.
Because I don't ever want to be that one teacher or that one family member who said something that was hurtful that spun someone off in a direction that couldn't be corrected.
Right.
So I think that those would be the moments that I would want to go back and correct.
Hey, okay. I mean that's good, because a lot of people. So I've had people on here like nothing. I can't think of anything, and I get it. And I think they're going off the idea of what you just said was, yeah, there's things that happened that I wish they didn't happen, but they caused me to be who I am. And I mentioned this early on in this podcast where we said the things you do shape you, good, bad, or otherwise. The people you meet, the people in our lives, you wish they were never in your life, but you wouldn't be the person you are now. And if you're honest with yourself and you can sit back and say, hey, I'm good, or I try to be good, and I want to do good, but I struggle. Well, you got to keep struggling. You got to have discipline enough to hold yourself accountable and do the right thing. So I think that that's a fantastic answer, that you're actually humble enough to sit back and say, I've done things that I wish I could fix, but you can't. And you go back and you look at him like it's made me who I am, and all I can do is go forward and try to do the right thing from here on out. So I think that's great. I think that is absolutely it's really cool that you see that with yourself and see that with your kids too. So
It took a long time to learn that, though, right?
yeah,
It has taken me a long time to arrive in that place. It's not. It's that place of learning still.
sure, yeah.
So,
But if you stop learning, you know it all,
right.
and if you know it all, you're not on this planet anymore because
Right.
you're not human anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears here, and I'm going to let everybody know that if they want to see what we've got going on with the What's a Hero podcast, or you want to join the conversation, you can reach out to us on Instagram, and that's at the What's a Hero _podcast, or you can go to Twitter and you can, say something and or ask questions or send me an email that way, and you can do it at what's _hero. And that's on Twitter. On Facebook, we're at What's a Hero. And you can find me on LinkedIn. And you can also go to our website, and that is the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com. You can also go to your favorite podcast platform from there. I have a link that takes to every podcast platform. You can go into whatever one you like to listen to us on. Download us from there. Downloads help because that kind of tells me how many people are listening, because yes, you can listen directly from the website, not a problem. But if you don't want to use up your data, or you may not have service at a certain point, you'll have it on your phone, or you can have it on your, well, I guess that's what most people would have it on their phone. Nobody has really an iPod anymore. But I'm gonna date myself and say I still have my iPod, and I use it. I leave it so where I can listen to it if I need to, but mostly I listen to other podcasts, which is, kind of goofy. But so I have that, but you can listen to it from there. Go to those, whatever platforms, let's say Apple Podcasts. You can leave a review on there for the show. Let us know what you think. And when people start looking for shows to listen to, your review can actually help them choose whether or not they want to listen to our show. So it would be kind of cool. So it kind of works out both ways for everybody. But go there. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you got questions for Vicky. She'd be happy to answer those. So remember, if you are who you are because someone decided to work in your life, thank them. Go back and show them that the seed they planted years ago has grown into a great human being that they can be proud of. And if it's too late and they are no longer here, then honor them by being the best you can be with what they gave you. So, Vicky, do you have anything you'd like to add before we close out this episode?
That's hard. I don't know. I do want to say that sometimes I get frustrated at sort of being faded into the background, I guess. I'm human, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
And in those moments, I have a Post-it note on my desk that just says serve and not be served. And that's my reminder to keep me focused where I need to be focused.
Yeah.
And remember that it shouldn't be about me.
Yeah. No.
So
that is fantastic. And I just had a thought while you were saying that. A couple podcasts ago, I had Jessica and Tatiana on here, and they were talking about we had a quip where I said, "When in doubt, communicate it out," and I was like, "Oh, that's stupid! Don't ever say that." And they're like, "No, we're going to do that."
Is it on a shirt yet?
So Tatiana, she sent me a message the other day. So go check out what I put together. So she actually showed me the rough draft of this on a shirt, and I was like, "Oh man, you got to be kidding me!" But I think that would be awesome for another shirt. Would be serve, not be served. Or no, what is
serve
it?
and not be served.
Serve
yeah.
and not be served.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be, that personifies a hero, if nothing else. Because a servant needs to be a leader, or a leader needs to be a servant first. And so that's exactly what it is. And if you're not humble and you have this, I'm the boss around here, all this different stuff, you're not getting the idea of what a real leader is. You're not really getting what a person who cares about other people really is. You're wanting to be a ruler, not a leader. And A ruler, they only last so long. A leader, they last a long time because they're remembered and they're honored through memories and the things they gave back to other people. So it makes a huge difference. So I want to thank all the teachers out there that are honestly trying to be the best role model developer of good people possible. Without you, we would be in a world of hurt. So, Vicki, thank you, and all of your compatriots, all of your peers who do the same job you do. And there's ups and downs, and there's those ones who are doing it because they're trying to, you see it in the news and you see it all this different stuff that they're trying to, whether it's a college professor or a middle school teacher or whatever. Once you realize that it's not about you and it's about these kids and it's about helping to water these plants of goodness that are going to go out in the world and help create the world to be better, that's going to make a big difference. So I also want to thank all our police officers out there who are on the front line, making sure that we are safe, that we are able to live in a great country here. Firefighters who are also protecting us from all sorts of things when they come and do their lift assists or using their jaws of life, or they're putting out fires. Without you guys, we would be once again in a huge world of hurt. Our frontline nurses and doctors, thank you so much for everything you do. And our military vets out there shedding blood and making sure that we have a country that you can come back to, that will support you, but that we have this country to live in that loves and honors those who serve. So for Vicki, thank you very much. I have been Ken, and this has been the What's a Hero podcast. We are clear.